critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words that make...
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is Those Were the Days with George as we head into those wonderful 90s. And George, where are you taking us today?
91, 92. I've talked on here about some years that were important to Newcastle United. I think this was a turnaround year. This really set the bar for the future, in my opinion, as you'll probably discover as we go through. Where were we in terms of life in general? Well, if you're a music fan, Bryan Adams, Everything I Do for You was top of the pops for weeks. I remember going to a pantomime at the Empire at Sunderland with all the Cubs and Scouts. We hired the whole place, and the principal boy, that was her song, Everything I Do for You. And as soon as you start to sing, 3,000 kids joined in. I don't think she was best pleased. It was a big number, and she had 3,000 kids joining in. Anyway, that was Bryan Adams. Black and White, Michael Jackson. Losing My Religion, R.E.M. And Joyride, Roxette by Joyride. Some great music there. And in terms of the films, well, it was Home Alone was the big one. Plus Arachnophobia. Arachnophobia couldn't be shifted as the top movie for about four months. It was just so, and yet I didn't see it. But 4 months they couldn't shift it. So Home Alone was the big one anyway. Right, 1991, 92. On the field, I was our dealers manager with a very young squad. A lot of local lads getting a chance, but playing brilliant football, but shipping goals like nobody's business. And it was a worry. The fans supported what was happening on the field in terms of turning up, but even the best fans could see that unless something was done to stop shipping the goals, they were in trouble. Anyway, we started the season our usual way, host of friendlies in Sweden and Norway, Moby, Reining, Sylvia, Hilly, Norrköping, Rimbo, and in between Darlington, Morton, Falkirk, and Ushpestorja came and did a friendly. So we had 10 friendlies before we kicked a ball in the league. However, it was the way we were in those days. It seemed to be a pattern we followed, and but it just is amazing that they did that year after year. So anybody that was in that squad, by the time we came to start the season, they must have been fit. Right. First game was an away game at Charlton Athletic, and at the Valley, yeah, that's a nice one. And Ozzy picks the team. Pavel, Stevie Watson, Robbie Elliott, Liam O'Brien, Kevin Scott, Darren Bradshaw, Lee Clark, Gavin Peacock, Mickey Quinn, and Franz Carr. Kevin Brock and David Roach were the substitutes. Charlton Athletic with two joint managers, Alan Kirbishley and Steve Gray. It was an experiment they tried, and for a while it worked, but eventually there's got to be one boss, and it was ended up Steve Kirbishley, but never mind. The team, well, some names, big names in terms of football: Bob Boulder in goal, Fletcher Gatling, the brother of the cricketer, Minto Peake, Steve Gritt, Colin Walsh, and a young man called Rob Lee playing in midfield. John Bumstead and Gary Nelson. A team of a mixture of up-and-comings and has-beens, but a good football side nonetheless. We went there to the Valley and 9,000 in the ground, and well, we didn't do very well. We lost 2-1. They were 2 goals up by 70 minutes, and just at the death, 86 minutes, France got a consolation for us. But it was a consolation. We just never got in the game after that. So we came home to a home game against Watford, and now that's I think that's from the Valley.
I think it is.
That's Charlton. Yeah.
Okay.
Home game against Watford, and obviously everybody's hoping that we get off to a winning way in the home games. We same team picked by Ozzy Ardelis, and changes the subs, but otherwise the team's the same. Steve Perryman's the manager of Watford, the ex-Spurs player. In goal, David James, a well-known name even now. Darren Bardsley, right back. Nigel Gibbs, ex-Arsenal. And a whole host of others. Peter Nicholas, Trevor Putney, Gary Porter, Steve Butler, all from London clubs and moved across to Watford, sort of on their way down, really. But the danger man was a West Indian called Luther Blissett, and he tended to be centre forward, but he was always a handful. 22,400 at the game, and we got off to a brilliant start. There's a injury early on, and Andy Hunt comes on, and he scores in the 10th minute. Peter Nicholas equalises 27. And then the same with the Blissett I've just talked about puts them 2-1 in the lead. And on 56 minutes, and lo and behold, Lee Clark on 57 minutes gets the equaliser. And it's pretty ding-dong from then, but neither side could snatch a winner. So we end up with a 2-2 draw, which at least gets a point on the board. Our next game is an away game at Middlesbrough. Tyne Tees Derby, I like to call it still. And Middlesbrough regarded as one of the hot favourites for promotion. You couldn't say that about ourselves. So Ozzy sends an unchanged team and hopes that that'll be enough to turn Middlesbrough over. Middlesbrough, some great names, Stephen Pearce, Gary Parkinson, who latterly has been making a name for himself in management. Tony Mowbray, of course. Robbie Mustoe was always the thorn in our side from midfield, always managed to score goals. Mark Proctor, Stuart Ripley, a flying right wing, and John Henry, who we got to get to know very, very well. And Paul Wilkinson on the left. There's some dangerous players in that side. Well, we go to Ayson Park, 16,900 in the ground, and we get a 3-0 defeat. We're really not in this game. Paul Wilkinson in 28 minutes, Mark Proctor 64 minutes, and Willie Falconer in 81 just wraps it up 3-0. And it was comfortable for Middlesbrough. And if you're a Newcastle fan, it was too comfortable. That was the worry. The defeat's bad enough, but when it's so comfortable, it's easy. You worry about that. We then go to Bristol Rovers, and well, everybody's hopeful that we may get something out of this one. They're not pulling up trees and fairly new to this division. 6,500 at the game. Ozzy sends an unchanged team. Subs changed. Andy Nelson comes in, and Lee Makel comes in as sub. Bristol Rovers, it's difficult to find players that are known those days, never mind these days. But there were one or two old stagers like Jeff Twentyman, who played for Liverpool for years. Andy Boothroyd, and there's a name that if you watch England under 21s and 23s, Andy Boothroyd's been the manager of those at some stages. Ian Wilmot was a dangerous player, and Andy Rees. But other than that, the names were anonymous to football fans generally, but they weren't a bad side. Anyway, we go to Bristol, 6,500 in the ground, as I say, and Liam O'Brien with a typical header from a corner on 44 minutes gives with the lead. And then on 54 minutes, Mickey Quinn with a snatch inside the box again from a corner makes it 2-0. And we're coasting to a nice win. And then on 88 minutes, Justin Skinner gets the consolation for Bristol. And from then on, it's backs to the wall because they really have a go at us. But we hold on for the 2-1 win, which is keeps everybody happy. The next game's a home game against Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth always a good footballing side, always entertaining to see. And Ozzy Fields a strong team. He's got Gavin Peacock in as usual, but early on Gavin gets an injury and Andy Hunt comes on, and David Roach is the other substitute. Plymouth Argyle is managed by David Kemp, who's an ex-player of theirs, and they have one or two players that are known because of their previous career more than anything. Dwight Marshall, good attacker. Steve Morgan, good winger from Manchester, and Adrian Burrows from London at fullback. So, but they're a tidy side, and aren't doing too badly considering that they're not they're only new to the division. It's a good game. David Selman of Plymouth puts them in the lead at 41 minutes. It's 2-0 after 62 minutes, and everybody thinks, well, this is not going well for us. And then Franz Carr in 81 minutes gets a typical Franz Carr goal. He runs half the length of the field before he slots it in. Then in 85 minutes, Mickey Quinn from a scrappy corner with the balls bouncing about the penalty area like a pinball makes it 2-2. So we end up coming away with a 2-2 draw when we didn't really look like we were going to get anything out of this game. We're then away to Tranmere Rovers. Tranmere again, new to this division, but never easy to beat on their own turf. And we go there with an unchanged side. The only changes out of the substitutes, and Kevin Brooks back on and David Roche is back on as substitutes. Team's unchanged. Kevin Scott's the captain, which is interesting considering our discussions elsewhere about centre-half being captain. Well, Ozzy decided that Kevin Scott would be the one, and the local lad as well. 11,500 at the game at Tranmere. Now, that's a lot for them. If you've ever been to Tranmere, it isn't a huge ground. 11,500 would just about fill it. And I suspect we had a good proportion of that crowd. Tranmere team, well, as usual, because it's on Merseyside, it's littered with ex-Merseyside players. Eric Nixon in goal, for example. Mark Hughes playing in the side. Steve Vickers, John Montgomery, David Martindale, and John Aldrich, the ex-Liverpool centre-forward. So they've got some tidy players, all right. Some of them are on the wrong side of 30, but they're still a tidy side. Get off to a poor start. Chris Macon scores on 18 minutes for them. And then 42 minutes, just be half time, Liam O'Brien gets an equaliser. And with the last kick of the half, Lee Clark makes it 2-1 to us, and everybody thinks, well, this this is going well. Well, after half time, Tranmere come out and they're a different side. And Tony Thomas and Steve Vickers on 59 and 86 minutes make it 3-2 to Tranmere. And after that, we never really looked like getting anything out of the game. We second best all over the place. Next game is a home game against Wolves. And always an attractive fixture with Wolves. Not going to be easy because they're also being touted as possible champions, promotion candidates out of the second division. 21,000 in the crowd. Aussie's team, Pavel Cernacek, Robbie Elliott, Liam O'Brien, Kevin Scott, David Bradshaw, Lee Clark, Kevin Brock, Gavin Peacock, Franz Carr, and Andy Hunt. He's again littered with young players and playing attractive football. For Wolverhampton Wanderers, well, some of the names, Mike Stowell, played in goal for them for years, and Mark Venus, who was around for years. Keith Downing in the midfield, whose father was a Middlesbrough manager. Tim Steele, Paul Cook, and Steve Bull, a centre forward, who was just a goal machine. And Andy Much, who played for them. Now, Andy Much, the physiotherapist at Newcastle for a lot of years, and when I was a junior, was Alec Much. And Alec Much was Andy Much's grandfather. There's that family connection. Anyway, as I say, 20,100 in the ground, and we're not doing very well, but even worse after half time, 49 minutes, Kevin Scott scores an own goal at a corner. And then Steve Bull from another corner, bullet header, which is his trademark, 73 minutes, and it's 2-0. On 83 minutes, there's an own goal from Madison in the Wolves defence. And for 5 of the last 8 minutes that was left, we at least give it a go. It was exciting, but we couldn't get anything out of it, and we lose 2-1. Next game's at home game with Ipswich, and it's a reflection of how things are going. Crowd 16,000, unchanged team from Aussie Ardelis. Ipswich Town. Well, they've got John Lyle, ex-West Ham man, as their manager, and he's reforming the team. But there's one or two names in that people might remember, like Paul Goddard, Chris Kouambia, and one of the first Dutch players to play for them, Zonder Van and David Linnigan, all names that were well known and for good football as well. We get off to a bad start. Chris Kouambia takes a free kick and bang, 37 minutes we're a goal down. However, we really give it a go. The lads are trying hard. And on 68 minutes, Gavin Peacock going through would certainly have scored. But he was pulled down, and up stepped Mickey Quinn to make it 1-1. So at least a point, to get something out of the game. We're then away to Millwall, and the Lions, clubs with great traditions. I always think, traditions are all sorts of things, but it's real football fans, most of them. Some of them a bit potty, but still football fans. 9,100 at the game, and the statistic that's worrying is that we're sitting bottom of the league. We're 22nd, which is not very comfortable. Will Millwall managers are well known. Bruce Rioch, ex Arsenal and Derby County captain and Scottish player. And there's others in the team that raise the eyebrow, like the centre half, Mick McCarthy. On the right side of the midfield, Ian Bogie, who's with us. And on the right wing, Paul Stevenson, who's the product of Newcastle United. Well, there's lots of in the match to interest people. Slight changes from Ozzy Cernacek, Andy Nelson's in, Mark Stimson, who was just bought, Liam O'Brien, Kevin Scott, Darren Bradshaw, Lee Clark, Gavin Peacock, Mickey Quinn, Andy Walker, who's a young professional just signed, and Kevin Brock. They play good football. It's a good, entertaining game. 7 minutes, Andy Nelson puts us 1-0 up from a corner. Paul Kerr from Millwall equalises from a corner for them, just after 2 minutes after we do. And right at the death, Paul Kerr again runs through our defence and slots it home. And it's 2-1, and they don't even have time to kick off after the goal goes in, and the referee ends the game, and we've lost 2-1, well and truly. We then go to Crewe. It's the League Cup second round. Crewe decide to, because their own ground was being refurbished, and they couldn't get many people in, so they asked Crystal Palace if they could use their ground. Now, in those days, people did that. Some of the lower teams and non-league teams, if there was a big ground near, asked for permission to play their home game at that ground. And this was Crewe asking Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, can we come and play this game, this second round League Cup tie against Newcastle? And they got 5,000 at the game. Ozzy sends an unchanged team. The fact that it's Crewe doesn't faze him. He just sends the same team. And then Crewe, who are managed by someone who managed a lot of teams in the south, got a great name as a coach. Dario Gradi was his name. Linked mostly with QPR, really. But a good name as a coach, and coached a lot of teams in the south, and think for a short while was involved with the setup in England, the younger English teams. The Crewe team, well, Callaghan, who used to be a Liverpool player, Rob Jones, ex-Liverpool, Rob Edwards, ex-Manchester, Stuart Evans, ex-Liverpool. So a side of up and comings and has-beens, but a side that was playing attractive football. The game went horribly wrong at the beginning when Stuart Evans, on 13 and 14 minutes, put Crewe 2-0 in the lead. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Aaron Callaghan, the ex-Liverpool man, made it 3-0. And it looked like it was a disaster for Newcastle. However, on 30 minutes, Andy Hunt gets a goal. Gavin Peacock on 42. So we go in at half-time 3-2 instead of 3-0. And then just to add grist to the mill, Gavin Peacock on 74 and 84 minutes gets two more, has a hat-trick, and gets with a win 4-3, which is heaves a huge sigh of relief from the fans from the Gallagher corner. We're now at home to Derby in the league. 17,000 in the ground, and Ozzy sends out an unchanged team, and Derby County now managed by a man called Arthur Cox, who we know quite well at Newcastle, and some names in his team. Peter Shilton in goal. I love the way this company that writes this stuff. Sometimes I don't know why they do it, but some players get the whole name. Peter Leslie Shilton. That's his real name. I find it quite fascinating. And others, Gary Micklewhite, great old stager in second division football, lower league football. Bobby Davidson, a very dangerous forward. Ormond Boothroyd, another dangerous forward who populated the second division most of his career, but with Derby and Stoke and teams like that. 17,500 in the ground, and well, it looks like we're going to struggle because on 32 minutes, Bobby Davidson, I've just talked about, puts Derby in the lead, and on 57, Ian Ormondroyd makes it 2-0, and it looks like we're heading for a bad defeat. But on 78, Andy Hunt scores a screamer. Andy Hunt didn't score many goals, but some of the ones he did were really, really good ones. He had a cannonball in each foot. And then, lo and behold, it hardly had time to settle down after the first goal when Mickey Quinn skated through the defence and made it 2-2. So after that, it was backs to the wall for Derby. We give it a go, but we couldn't get the winning goal. So we ended up 2-2. So we then come back to Newcastle for the Zenith Data Systems Cup first round. This is this is the old-fashioned football league trying to generate all sorts of things with various cups, and this was one of them. And in fact, I think we won this one year. We're playing at Tranmere at Prenton Park. 4,000 in the ground. So even Tranmere's fans aren't excited by this cup. So anyway, it's a ding dong of a match. Half time 2-2, and at the end it ends up 3-3. And then lo and behold, we go into penalties. Mickey Quinn scores a hat trick of penalties, and it ends up 6-6. But of course, the thing that matters is that Tranmere got the win on the full time score, and we go out of another cup. But their team, like the team we play in the league, Eric Nixon, Mark Hughes, Neil McNabb, John Aldridge, names to conjure with. Now our team unchanged, but sadly come away with nothing in the pot. We then at home to Portsmouth, no, away to Portsmouth in the league. Pompey always a good trip. My family always liked to go to Portsmouth, even though it was a hell of a long way on the bus, I can tell you, in those days. Pratton Park, just under 11,000 in the ground. They aren't playing terribly well, so we're hopeful of something out of it, but dangerous thing to be hopeful when you're a Newcastle fan. Ozzy sends out virtually an unchanged team, with the only differences in the substitutes, with David Roach and Matty Appleby coming in as substitutes. Portsmouth, managed by somebody called Jim Smith, is another name we know.
Bald Eagle.
Oh, absolutely. And the team of people that are really well known. Alan Knight in goal, played his football in the south, but a character in goal and the one who did well. Andy Orford at fullback. John Beresford, now who's that? Playing at fullback. And Darren Anderton, who was a tidy player for Spurs and others. Mark Chamberlain for Chelsea and Fulham, and Steve Wigley, a big centre forward from Nottingham Forest. So and Colin Clark, another dangerous forward who, yes, he's on his way down, but nonetheless still a dangerous player. A good football game by all accounts. Only problem is on 19 minutes, the penalty by Ken Ames gives Portsmouth the lead. Then Mark Stimson, scores an own goal on 39. And then on 55, Colin Clark makes it 3-0. And we're out of it, really. We're not really in the game. Mickey Quinn, in his usual way, gets a striker's goal, get goal, poacher's goal. And he 68 minutes. I would like to say that spurred one to try and get back in the game, but it didn't really. It was an easy one for Portsmouth. And we're not looking very clever at the moment. It's got to be said. So we're home now for the return game with Crewe in the second round of the League Cup. 9,000 in St James's Park, which must have been, I wasn't there, so it must have been diabolical. Anyway, the team's virtually unchanged. Ozzy sticks by the ones he's got, and Crewe, Dario Gradi's not made any great changes to his side either. The ex-Liverpool contingent that he's got in the team, Mac Phillips and Stuart Evans and Aaron Callaghan, are all back in the side, and it's not a bad game. So I read, but it looked like we're going to end up with a 0-0, but then on Newcastle substitute comes on, and a young attacker, but eventually defender, and scores on the 89th minute. A young man called Steve Howie, who we get to know and love very well, and still do, and who went to the same school as I did and wore the same number 5 shirt that I did in the school team. It was a bit grey and tattered by the time Steve walked in, because it was very old. But Steve Howie gets to a 1-0, and that's enough to get through to the next round of the League Cup. So we're home to Leicester City next. Everybody's praying for some sort of action. Leicester aren't the best team in the world, but we've got to do something. I mean, we're positioned at the moment is still rock bottom, 22nd it says, and you can't get any lower than that. So Ozzy sends out an unchanged team: Cernachuk, Nelson, Stimson, O'Brien, Scott, Gavin Maguire, Lee Clark, Gavin Peacock, David Roach, Andy Hunt, Franz Carr. David Roach has gone into the centre because Mickey Quinn's got an injury. The Leicester City manager is Brian Little, ex-Aston Villa player. And Brian Little started to make a name for himself and then just disappeared out of management, and has family connections in the northeast. And Leicester's team, well, players with names: Kevin Poole, goalkeeper that's been around and people know about; Steve Walsh, who had been with Ipswich; Colin Gibson at Manchester United; Tommy Wright, David Oldfield, and a young man called David Kelly in their attack, and Scott Oakes. A dangerous side, but a team that we should at least have a go at. 16,000 in the ground, which is a sight better than the previous game. And it looks like it's dead set 0-0 up to half time, and can't see anybody scoring. And then Andy Hunt, as I said, didn't score many. A blockbuster from way out wide on 66 minutes, and that got off the ground. And then a Lee Clark tap in from a corner at the end on 78 minutes, and we end up with a 2-0 win, which huge sigh of relief to the Gallagher corner and everybody else, because we really need these points. We're at home to Oxford next, Oxford United. Again, a team that's struggling like us, and we should really be putting these to the sword. This is an Aussie team with a slight change. Tommy Wright's in goal because Pavel's got an injury, and Steve Howie's still in because Quinny's still injured. Oxford United is managed by Brian Horton, an ex-player of theirs, and a team of old hands, mostly, like Steve Foster at centre-back, Andy Melville, all from teams in the south of England, Jim Magillan from Ipswich, Trevor Aylott from West Ham, but a tidy side. As I say, 16,500 in the ground, and everybody's thinking this should be ours. This should be a game for us. Well, their centre forward John Durkin, 3 minutes gets the goal down, but Andy Hunt on 15 minutes scores a nice tidy goal from inside the penalty area. So we're 1-1 at 1-1. And at half time, it's 2-1 because 34 minutes Gavin Peacock scores. Then 2-2 when Mike Ford scores 47 minutes for Oxford. 48 minutes, Gavin Peacock puts us back in the lead. 72 minutes, Mickey Lewis makes it 3-3. And then right at the death, 90 minutes, Gavin Peacock makes it 4-3. So a great sigh of relief. It lifts you off the bottom. We're up to 20th and gives a little bit of breathing space, but not an enormous amount. We then have an away trip to Bristol City. Haven't played the other Bristol beforehand. At Ashton Gate, 8,500 at the game. Unchanged team by Aussie. Tommy Wright still in goal, and as I say, young Steve Howie's still up front because Mickey Quinn's still on the injury list. The City team, well, not many that when you look at it that have made much way in the game. Nicky Morgan now is a midfielder at Wrexham and Manchester United. Little player, but tidy, always busy. Tidy. Bob Taylor, centre forward, and Andy May was another one who would be known to people. So it's a tidy game, and they're not. We shouldn't be worried about playing this Bristol City. We should be able to take some points off them. Well, it looks like we might, because on 13 minutes, Lee Clark opens the scoring, and it looks that way. We're sailing along nicely to a 1-0 win, and then Bob Taylor, their old centre forward, pops up in the corner, and bang, it's 1-1 on 86 minutes. Not enough time to do anything about it, and so we come home with a draw, which a lot of fans would have hoped that a place like Bristol City we would have got a victory. The next game is an away game at Peterborough, and it's the third round of the League Cup. 11,000 at the game. League Cup, we haven't got a history of great runs in the League Cup. Everybody's hoping that we might in this one, just to relieve the gloom at about the league. Chris Turner's posh manager, and got a tidy side. He's collected one or two old hands to help him. Steve Walsh in defence from Leicester, and Alan Kimball from excuse me, from Crystal Palace. Gary Cooper from Ipswich, and David Riley, and centre forward Ken Charley, who's was big with Watford and went to Peterborough, but he didn't make anything at Peterborough. But a dangerous player just the same. Our side's Tommy Wright still in goal and otherwise unchanged, with David Roach a substitute. And it's a 0-0. It's written all over it, this game. And unfortunately, they didn't tell Ken Charley, the dangerous centre forward, because on 88 minutes, bang, 1-0. And that's the third round of the League Cup. We're a goal down already, but we get the chance to. London Road's not a happy hunting ground for us, so that's the second round of the League Cup out of the way, and never a happy place for us. So we then come home to Swindon. No, sorry, we're away to Swindon Town in the league. 10,000 at the county ground. Swindon are somebody we should be beating. We should be having a go at. And league position still very worrying. 21st before we kick off this game. So Swindon managers a young man called Glenn Hoddle, would you believe? And one or two players in that he's brought from elsewhere, particularly from Spurs, and who we know, Colin Calderwood, who used to be our coach for a while, Ross McLaren, Nicky Summerby, who ex-Manchester City forward, Mickey Hazard from Chelsea, Duncan Shearer, who was another Southampton forward, but no relation to ours, and Steve White, who's a dangerous forward as well. Tidy football game, but we're not in it. Colin Calderwood scores from a free kick on 40 minutes. Steve White on 88 minutes, and it's 2-0. And at the last gasp, Gavin Peacock on the 90th minute makes it 2-1. But we're never really going to pull anything out of that game. We're really in the doldrums with that one. We then go home to a home game against Cambridge, and a must-win game if ever I've seen one. And you know, the Gallagher corners almost on their hands and knees, praying that this will go well. Anyway, Aussie an unchanged team with Tommy Wright still in goal, Steve Howie's still up front. Cambridge, John Beck, who is an ex-player of theirs, tidy midfielder when he played, and they've got Alan Kimball, Danny O'Shea, Steve Claridge, dangerous player from those times, centre forward, played well into his 40s. Steve Claridge, and John Taylor, dangerous winger for Cambridge. So it looks like a tidy game, and it is a tidy game. I was at this one, and it's got 0-0 written all over it. And then, unfortunately, we forgot about Steve Claridge, and on 59 minutes, from nowhere, he makes it 1-0 to Cambridge. Then Andy Hunt, with another of his unusual goals, gets the equaliser on 89. So we end up 1-1, and unfortunately, we that 1-1 keeps us well and truly fixed at the bottom of the league. We're then at home to Grimsby. Grimsby are bounced along the bottom just like we are, so we should be getting something out of this game. 16,000 at St James's. Team, same. Tommy Wright still in goal, and Steve Howie's still up front because Mickey Quinn's still injured. Steve Watson comes back in as a substitute. Grimsby managed by Alan Buckley, ex-player of theirs. Dangerous little forward when he played. And one or two names that have been around a while. The goalkeeper, Steve Sherwood. Gary Childs up front. Neil Woods up front. Gary Birtles, ex-Nottingham Forest forward, up front for them as well. So one or two dangerous players, but a team that we really should be beating. And as I say, with nearly 17,000 in the ground, Andy Hunt makes it 1-0 on 17 minutes. And then Steve Howie gets the second on 29. So we go in at half-time at 2-0. And that's how it stays. Second half was a miserable second half. is all how I can describe it. But at least we've got a 2-0 victory. And fixes were not on the bottom, but we're 21st. We're right next to it and getting a sweat on. And we go to Sunderland. Now, when the season started, before the season started, they were being touted as possible champions. Well, they're not playing like champions because they're only a couple of places above us. And go to Roker Park, 30,000 in the crowd, and quite a difference to what we've been getting at home. And Sunderland managed by Dennis Smith, ex-centre half for them, with some talented players, but they're not playing very well. Tony Norman in goal, John Kay, Andy Rogan, Paul Bracewell in midfield, who is important to us, Gary Bennett, Ian Ferguson, David Rush, Peter Davenport that they paid a lot of money for from Nottingham Forest, and Johnny Byrne, who they got from West Ham, and Gordon Armstrong, who they bought from Middlesbrough. Touted as possible champions, but not playing like champions. In fact, they're, as I say, just a couple of places above us. Tidy game. It looks bad for us when Davenport slides in and makes it 1-0 for Sunderland, and we go in 1-0 at half time. But then exactly on the hour, Liam O'Brien, with a typical Liam O'Brien header from a corner, makes it 1-1, and we come home from Roker Park with a draw, which is pleases everybody. We're now at home to Southend, and Southend are actually the bottom team at this stage. So we're hoping that a win to go with the reasonable results we've just had would make a big difference. An unchanged team, Tommy Wright's still in goal, and Steve Howie's still up front. And a young man called Alan Thompson comes on as substitute. Another young local player that's getting an opportunity off Aussie. David Webb, ex-Chelsea stalwart, is the manager of Southend, and with names of players who've spent their life in the South, Steve Tilson, John Colwell, Spencer Pryor, all from West Ham, Charlton, places like that. 14,000 in the ground for Southend. And it's must win for us. 9 minutes, Gavin Peacock gets a nice penalty in, and having been brought down himself in the penalty area. Brett Angle scores 30 minutes to get an equaliser, and then Gavin Peacock gets another penalty. So we're coasting now. And then just before half time, Andy Hunt makes it 3. So we go in 3-1, and it looks like an easy victory. But on 80 minutes, Steve Tilson gets second for Southend, and it's backs to the wall. Southend really do press us. But we end up with a 3-2 victory. And of course, that victory does enormous things to our league position. It leaps up to 15th instead of 21st, 22nd, bumping along the bottom. And it's sighs of relief all round, I think is how I'd describe it. We're next at home to Blackburn Rovers. 23,000 for Blackburn, which is interesting. I think that says something about how people feel about about some of the teams. Steve Watson's in it right back now by Aussie, but the rest of the team is much the same. Steve Howie's still up front, and Alan Thompson is back on as substitute again. Blackburn manager, of course, is a man called Kenny Dalglish. Some characters from the Manchester area in their team: Bobby Mims, their goalkeeper; Colin Hendry, that centre half; big blonde Scottish centre half; Kevin Moran, Manchester United; Mark Atkins, and then a young man on the left side of the midfield called Scott Sellers, who we got to know quite well. David Speedy, ex-Everton, and Mike Newell, who, Mike Newell played for everybody in that part of the world, but a dangerous centre forward on his day. So we come and we have Blackburn 23,600 in the ground. Having mentioned all those names, it was an awful 0-0, and from the minute it kicked off, it looked like 0-0, and that's how it ended. But at least we got a point, and we're now 16th with that point, which is, as I say, people are heaving a sigh of relief because it's they've been looking over their shoulders quite desperately the previous weeks. So we then go to Barnsley. We have an away game at Barnsley, and they're not doing very well. And we should really be beating teams like Barnsley. They aren't. They're bounced around the bottom just like we are. 9,000 at Oakwell. Ozzy sends out the same team: Tommy Wright, Steve Watson, Mark Stimson, Liam O'Brien, Kevin Scott, Matty Appleby, David Roach, Gavin Peacock, Steve Howie, and Andy Hunt. And Alan Thompson, Kevin Brock was substitute. Barnsley have Mel Machin, ex-Premierleague, ex-Oxford player, ex-Coventry player as their manager. And they have some fair number of ex-Leeds players in the team. Jerry Taggart, Wayne Bullymore. Neil Redfern is a name we know. He used to be one of our coaches at Newcastle for a while. Andy Saville and Andy Rammell, dangerous centre forward, and we should beat them. But what we should do and what we do at Newcastle is always different. Because on 25 minutes, Andy Saville makes it 1-0. 40 minutes just before half time, Mark Robinson makes it 2-0, and then lo and behold, with the last kick of the first half, Andy Rammell makes it 3-0. So we go in 3-0 down. The second half, everybody's hoping Newcastle have had a kick up the backside in the dressing room. Well, if they did, it didn't show because it ended out a very drab 0-0 second half. So we lost to Barnsley 3-0, which was very disappointing. And so we then come home to Port Vale is our next game. 18,000 in the ground. After the end of the previous week's fixtures, we're 17th in the league. We're looking over our shoulder again. Ozzy sends out same team, Tommy Wright, etc. And only difference is on the left side of midfield, he brings in Kevin Brock, who's a tidy player and had some good games for us. Port Vale, well, John Rudge is the manager. John Rudge, ex-player as well. Played for Everton and one or two other teams in that part of the world. It's funny how you can see who he's played for by when you look at some of the people in his team, like Neil Aspin, Dean Glover, Darren Hughes, Andy Porter, all from teams in that part of the world, from Everton, Manchester, and so on. And a couple of from the Stoke area as well. But a centre forward from bit near at us called Colin West, who played for our friends down the road for a while. Dangerous centre forward, and has to be watched. Reasonable game in terms of football. Lee Makel's on and as a substitute and scores on 40 minutes. Darren Hughes for them 43 makes it 1-1. That's half time, and then. Gavin Peacock in 61 minutes gets a penalty after being brought down in the area himself. And then Dean Glover gets a penalty for them on 66 minutes. And it's 2-2. And that's how it stays. It never looked like changing. It was never going to be anything other than a draw after that. We then away to Brighton. It's... the Goldstone ground, as it was in those days. Barry Lloyd's the manager, ex Brighton and Spurs centre half, but again, players that have been around a while: Gary Chivers, Bernard Gallagher, Gary O'Reilly, Clive Walker from Chelsea, and Mark Farrington from West Ham. Newcastle, well, Ozzy sends nearly the same team, but he's got Tommy Wright back in because there's change there. David Roach is fullback. Steve Watson's picked up an injury, and other than that, it's unchanged. Brighton doing quite well considering where they are and in the league, and they get off to a 25 minutes, get a goal. Gavin Peacock, 32, equalises. And then just before half time, David Kelly, who we bought from Leicester, makes it 2-1. And people are hopeful that that's going to stay that way. Unfortunately, 78 minutes, Mark Farrington makes it 2-2. And we come home from Brighton with a 2-2 draw. And we're 18th in the league after that result, which is takes a bit of pressure off. And we're now at Plymouth, Argyle. Long trip. Another trip my family insisted on making, but it was a tough one, but a pleasant one. Always make you very welcome in Plymouth. However, 5,000 at the game, which tells you everything. There's two teams that aren't playing very well, and we really in this game, in terms of football and style and everything else, we hit rock bottom. This wasn't. In fact, I think this is the beginning of the end for Aussie Ardealers, this game, because we weren't ever in it really. It sends an unchanged team out, but it's matterless. He's brought David Kelly in, but in this game, didn't look like anybody was going to do much, and they didn't. Plymouth have one or two dangerous players. Dave Regis, the centre forward, very dangerous, and scores the opening goal on 23 minutes. And 77, Martin Barlow makes it 2-0 at 77 minutes. And we never looked like pulling anything back. It was a miserable 2-0 loss, and we're sitting on 18th in the league now. Then we come home to a derby match with Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough are nearly top of the league, so it's going to be hard. 26,000 at the game, and Aussie keeps us one change. Steve Watson comes in at right back and gets another game, and then the rest of the team is as red. But you just need to look at the names in the team and who he's brought in and how young they were. You know, like Matty Appleby, David Roach, Paul Borden, Lee Mackle. Was really brave, but some would argue slightly foolhardy. And we have Middlesbrough with Lenny Lawrence now, the manager, the ex-Charlton manager, and he's made one or two changes. Stephen Pears in goal. He's still got Robbie Musto in the team, Andy Peake, Jamie Pollock, a dangerous player, Mark Proctor, a dangerous forward, and Bernie Slaven, who was always a thorn in our side, and Paul Wilkinson on the left-hand side. The game's there to be won. It's 0-0 at half-time, and it's end-to-end stuff, a proper derby game. Then on 54 minutes, Paul Wilkinson, the dangerous left-sided player, makes it 1-0 to Middlesbrough, and we don't look like we'll ever recover from that. And that defeat puts us 21st in the league, which is squeaky bum time for relegation. There's no doubt about it. We're then home to Bristol Rovers, and having turned them over at their place. We should do the same here. Aussie sticks to the same team. He's got David Kelly up front with Gavin Peacock, or dangerous combination. Bristol Rovers with no manager. They just sacked their manager just before they came to us, and the team, one or two stalwarts: Jeff Twentyman, Steve Yates, Steve Cross, all Tony Pounder, Carl Saunders, all stalwarts from that era, from different clubs, but all on the way down rather than up. We should really be beating this Bristol side. Doesn't look like we will, because Devin White, who's a dangerous centre forward, makes it 1-0 on 30 minutes for Bristol, and then 63 minutes, Kevin Brock with a free kick gets we're back into the game, and then a free header from a corner, and David Kelly doesn't miss those, and on 81 minutes we get a 2-1 victory, and it pushes up to 18th in the league. So things are starting to move a little bit. We're now at Southend at home. Sorry, we're at Southend, and really looking for a victory from this team, but it's a miserable game. 9,000 on the ground, and it's. I think this game was part of Aussie's undoing. We never looked in the game, and Southend took it off us easily. 4 minutes, 67 minutes, 45 minutes, and 56 minutes, 4-0, and we never looked like we'd ever get in the game at all. Not a chance. A very poor 4-0 loss, and that sits with quite nicely on 21st in the league, just above the bottom spot. So it's, as I say, squeaky bum time for relegation. And we then come back to FA Cup third round against Bournemouth. Away to Bournemouth in the FA Cup third round. 10,000 at Dean Court, and Aussie's team unchanged. Wright, Watson, Bradshaw, O'Brien, Scott, Appleby, Clark, Peacock, David Kelly, Andy Hunt, and Kevin Brock. Steve Howie is substitute. Bournemouth, managed by somebody called Harry Redknapp, who we know quite well. Names of players which tend to be follow their manager. You know, you've got Paul Woods, Sean Brooks, Sean O'Driscoll, all from the West Ham team, and Jimmy Quinn, Irish forward, who's quite a dangerous player, and Jimmy Case, ex-Liverpool player. So Bournemouth a tidy side, but if we're going to do anything, we should really beat these in the cup, and we come away with a 0-0. It's a end-to-end 0-0, but it's 0-0 still the same. So we're still in the cup. That's the important thing. And then we're away to Watford in the league. 9,800 at the ground, well, it's how can I say? Watford aren't a great team, and we're not doing pulling up trees either, and so it's drab. There's not too many mistakes. You know, the goals all come from mistakes. So anyway, we're 1 down in a minute. Dean Holdsworth is a tap in from a corner because he was totally unmarked, and then on 4 minutes, Gary Porter, one of their dangerous players, takes a pass from Peter Nicholas, who came to Watford from Arsenal, and they're 2-0 in lead, and we've only been playing 5 minutes. In goal for Watford, incidentally, is a man called Keith Woff. Now he came from our friends down the road, but Yeah, we're 2-0 and we've only been playing five minutes. Luther Blissett plays for them. He's the dangerous centre forward. And going at half time thinking, well, can we get anything out of this game? David Kelly gets one back on 23 minutes and we go in 2-1. And they come out in the second half. And it has to be said, they really give it a go. And they ended up with Andy Hunt getting an equaliser on 59 minutes. So we're 2-2. And unfortunately, because of other results, we do actually slip to the bottom place. We're 22nd after that game, which is, they say, is worrying, putting it mildly. So we're at home to Charlton now in the league, and we turned them over there. At least we came close to it. 15,000 on the ground, and it's a ding-dong of a game, end-to-end stuff. Lee Clark puts in the lead on 24 minutes. Andy Hunt 2-0 on 31 minutes. And then Kevin Brock 3-0 on 34 minutes. Then Andy Barnes 36 minutes makes it 3-1 at half time. After the second half, start of the second half, it looked like Charlton had given the players 2 spoons of sugar in their tea at half time because they just tore us apart. So Colin Walsh, 73 minutes, 76 minutes, and 89 minutes, and Charlton go home 4-3 winners and sit us really, really rock bottom in the league. Our team unchanged: Tommy Wright, Steve Watson, Alan Thompson sneaks in at left back as a substitute, but otherwise, Peacock, Kelly, Andy Hunt, Kevin Brock, all the same. Charlton now still managed by the pair, Steve Gritt and Alan Kirbishley, with the same team: Bob Boulder, Steve Gatton, and a centre-back called Alan Pardew, would you believe? Now, there's a name to conjure with. I wonder what happened to him. And to Colin Walsh, dangerous player, and Gary Nelson on the left. It looks like we're going to get something out of the game. But unfortunately, Charlton come back with a bang in the second half and we lose 4-3 and sits with rock bottom. And we're now heading towards the replay with Bournemouth at home in the Cup. And 26,000 at the game. It's amazing what difference the fact that it's a cup makes to the crowd. Aussie feels an unchanged team with Watson and Thompson as the fullbacks. And Bournemouth, Harry Redknapp still, again, feeling that his same team that we played at Bournemouth. 25,800 in the ground. And it looks like it's a ding-dong. It was a ding-dong game, I remember. Gavin Peacock, 14 minutes, and everybody thinks, well, that's a good start. But then on 79 minutes, Paul Wood for them equalises, and right at the death, right at the start of the extra time, Andy Hunt makes it 2-1, and everybody thinks, oh, that's it, we're through. Then a young man from West Ham called Kevin Bond, who's related to Harry Redknapp, makes it 2-2. And we have to go to penalties. And guess what? Newcastle United can go out the cup on penalties. So we're back to concentrating on the league as we need to. We've got an away game at Oxford. It's one that we should be winning. They aren't playing very well. But after 40 minutes, Steve Foster scores for them from a corner. John Durkin scores 61. Kevin Scott gets a header in 63. Gavin Peacock equalises in 67. But then Oxford go mad. Paul Simpson, 78 minutes. Trevor Aylott on 76 minutes. and another goal for Steve Foster in 86 minutes. And that's a 5-2 loss to Oxford United, which I say is depressing, putting it mildly. So we come home to Bristol, Bristol City, there is, and this is a game we must win because they're actually bouncing around below us, and we're 22nd. Sorry,
has Keegan been appointed then, George?
Just about to say.
All right, okay, no worries. Just with us putting the programme up and Kevin being on there, that's all.
Well, that I was about to say that the big difference is that with John Hall as chairman now, having taken over the boardroom's upside down with John Hall and his brother and first signs of the Shepherds coming in as well. So there's also Gordon McKeague's gone and George Forbes has gone. But the big appointment, was in the space of a couple of days, and Keegan was there, and immediately made differences, in my opinion. I also think that there was 29,000 at the ground because Kevin Keegan was appointed. That wasn't the team. That was for Keegan, I'm sure. But never mind. He plays virtually similar team that Ozzy left, except he brings Ray Ranson in and Mark Stimson at fullback instead of the two young ones. Liam O'Brien's in midfield along with Andy Nelson again, replacing youngsters. Kevin Scott's retained at centre half. Steve Watson gets back in the team, but in the forward line. And Gavin Peacock and David Kelly, the up front men, and Kevin Brock. And the impact on the team is startling. Bristol City's Jimmy Lumsden, an ex-player of theirs, is their manager. And one or two big names, David Rennie, Russell Osman from Ipswich, Junior Bent, dangerous West Indian centre forward, Wayne Allison, and it's a tidy game, but it should be ours. And takes the 52nd minute for David Kelly to score, then 61 minutes, and in between 55 minutes, Liam O'Brien scores, and it's a 3-0 win to welcome Kevin Keegan into his job. I think he's under no illusion, though, that we've still got a lot of work to do. And we're away to Blackburn, 19,000 at Ewood Park. Kenny Dalgley's still the manager. Bobby Minns, Colin Henry, Chris Price, Gordon Cowans, ex-Aston Villa, and David Speedy, ex-Everton, and Mike Newell as well as dangerous centre forward. A good side, Blackburn. Kevin plays Tommy Wright. He's got Ray Ranson at fullback, but there's an injury, and Franz Carr has to come on. Mark Stimson, Liam O'Brien, Darren Bradshaw, Andy Nielsen, Steve Watson, Gavin Peacock, David Kelly, Lee Clark, and you can see the slight changes he's making. 19,500 at Ewood Park, but it's a game. It looked like we might get something out of. David Kelly scores on 12 minutes, but then David Speedy, who's always a pain in the side to us, scores on 42, so it's 1-1. Then he scores on 59, and it's 2-1. And he scores on 74, and it's 3-1. David Speedy hat-trick, and Blackburn win 3-1. So we're starting to look at this over our shoulders at this league. We're still bumping along the bottom. And guess what? We're player friendly. Right in the middle of all this. We're player friendly against the touring North New Zealand side, which, it beggars belief that they would even think about that in the middle of a possible relegation battle. But they do. That's how we play. And we beat them 2-1 2-1, and so should. I mean, they're only just better than Northern League players, for goodness sake, but never mind. Next game's a home game against Barnsley, and we need to beat Barnsley because they're round about us. And there's Kevin with his deputy, Terry Mack, now sitting beside him. Picks an unchanged team, except he brings Steve Watson back in at right back instead of Ransom. Otherwise, the same, except Kevin Scott disappears from centre-back, and Kevin Keegan, in my opinion, one of the most vital signings he made for Newcastle United ever, Brian Killer Kilcline at centre-half. And by Jove, that was the signing that mattered if you watch this end of this season. 27,000 at the game for Barnsley. I mean, you know, we're lucky to get 15,000. Suddenly we're getting 27,000 just because Kevin Keegan's the manager. And that must inspire the players, at least you hope it will, but it doesn't seem to. David Kelly on 70 minutes puts 1-0 up. And David Curry, their dangerous forward, on 86, makes it 1-1. And we're still 22nd in the league, and that's not where we should be. That's not where we should be at all. We're now going away to Port Vale. We want to get a win here because they're like us. They're right down at the bottom. And sure enough, we do. We get a 1-0 win thanks to a goal from Stevie Watson. And Kevin sticks to his side with Tommy Wright, and hasn't made much difference to our dealers team, except he's took the young ones out and put experienced players in and bought an experienced player in Kilcline. And you can see the shape of what he's trying to do. And that 1-0 victory takes us up to 19th, which is a sigh of relief. In the Port Vale, managed by John Rudge, the big addition to their side is Keith Hutchin that they bought from Coventry, who was a goal scorer in their cup final win. So we get a 1-0 win at Port Vale, takes us off the bottom, which is a great sigh of relief. We now come home to a Brighton game, and again, another team we should be beating. 25,000 at the game. But what we should do and shouldn't do is two different things. We aren't particularly good, and neither are they, but on 78 minutes, they're good enough to at least get a goal and take the game 1-0. So that defeat puts us back down to 21st, which is really looking over our shoulders, Tyne. And it's interesting that Kevin tries something slightly different in defence. He keeps Kilcline in, and he brings in Kevin Scott as well to play alongside him. Obviously, the intention is to bolster the defence. Well, it didn't work on that particular time because we lost 1-0 to Brighton. We now off to Cambridge. Now, Cambridge, again, another team that's bumping along the bottom. We really need to be beating teams like Cambridge. 8,000 at the Abbey Stadium. Kevin, unchanged team virtually, except he changes left back and he brings young Alan Thompson back in to left back. Keeps Kilcline Scott experiment at double centre half. Mickey Quinn's back after a very long injury, alongside Gavin Peacock and David Kelly. And we bought Kevin Sheedy, a speedy winger from Everton. And it seems to work. We take the game to Cambridge, and 37 minutes, Gavin Peacock scores just before half-time. David Kelly scores a second, and we go in 2-0 at half-time. And when we come out, it never looks like we're going to lose it, and we don't. We end up with a 2-0 victory, which pushes us up to 19th, which is a huge sigh of relief from the Gallagher corner. We're now at home to Swindon, another team we should be beating. managed by Glenn Hoddle. Names to know: Fraser Digby, Paul Bowden, who was with us, was a young player with us. Glenn Hoddle himself playing as their manager. Mickey Hazard from Chelsea. And a tidy side, good football side. Well, you'd expect that with Hoddle. But we're up for it with this one. We really... David Kelly gets a goal on 30 minutes. In the second half, Dave Mitchell for Swindon gets an equaliser. Then 73, Gavin Peacock and Nicky Quinn in 82 make it 3-1 to Newcastle. So we end up with a 3-1 victory, which is a great sigh of relief. And Keegan keeps with the Kilcline Kevin Scott experiment, and it seemed to have worked in that game. The one thing was for sure, we're always a very dangerous threat from dead balls and corners, because with Scott was a good header and so was Kilcline. So we're now away to Grimsby. We want to do something here at Blundell Park. 11,000 at the game, and not the best of games. But the one thing sure is that the one thing that's not going to happen is we're not going to be swamped, because it's quite clear that the Kilcline Scott parents bolstering the defence, unchanged team almost, well, not almost, is unchanged from Keegan. Grimsby were Alan Buckley, the manager, an ex-player, have Paul Futcher, as well-known Manchester player, on his way out. Tony Ford, who we knew here for a while. Clive Mendenko from West Ham, and Neil Woods also from the south. It's a tidy game, except we're knocked off West Perch's first minute. Sean Cunningham, the centre forward, 1-0. And then on 41 minutes, just before half time, Kevin Sheedy runs through and scores a beautiful little goal to make it 1-1, and that was half time. And that's how it stayed. We never looked like losing that one, and sadly didn't never look like winning either. But at least it was a point that we needed so badly. And we're now 17th in the league, the heady heights of 17th. We come home to a home derby match against the Mackhams, against Sunderland. 30,300 at the game. Kevin fields a similar, almost identical team, except he's put Mark Stimson in instead of young Thompson at fullback. The Malcolm Crosby is the Sunderland manager now, and that's in the end to conjure with. If you remember the history of our previous manager at Newcastle and his coaches, Malcolm Crosby, Tim Carter in goal, John Kay, George Hardiman, Paul Bracewell, Kevin Ball, some real stalwarts in there. David Rush and Brian Atkinson. Not the best derby, I've got to be said. I remember being at this one. The only bright spot was David Kelly's goal, because it was a typical David Kelly header with his nose about half an inch off the turf when he put it into the back of the net. So a 1-0 victory over the Mackhams, and gosh, we're up to 17th. What a heady height, great heights we're into now. So we go to Wolves with problems, because Wolves are sitting near the top and they're not going to want to give this up. 14,500 at Molyneux. Wolves with Graham Turner, a great football manager, as their manager now. Their team, well, Stowell, Mark Venus, Laurie Madden, ex-Middlesbrough, Paul Birch, ex-Preston, Keith Downing, Steve Bull, centre forward, and Andy Much. A dangerous side, and we're fielding Kevin Fields an unchanged team, except he the first few minutes, Kilcline gets an injury and has to go up, and because he said something rather rude, the referee got yellow carded as well. So it upset the balance of the team, and so much that well, Wolves just tore apart. Andy Much and Steve Bull up front were just unplayable. Once Killie went off. 5 minutes and 10 minutes, there were 2 goals up from Much. We pulled one back from Mickey Quinn after 13 minutes. Then Tony Bennett, Paul Cook, Steve Bull 2, and Andy Much finished his hat-trick. 6-2 to Wolves. A miserable result. And as I say, you can trace that almost directly to the injury that Kilcline got and had to go off. And that sits we're back down to 18th. So we're now got Tranmere Rovers at St James's Park. And we're back to the must-win games now because we're running to the end of the season. And we're just not in the right place. We're not where we should be. Tranmere come with John King's the manager, ex-player, ex-Everton player. And Kevin Keegan, well, he's got Pavel back in goal because Pavel's injury's over. And he's got Steve Watson, Mark Stimson, Darren McDonough, Steve Howie, Kevin Scott, Mickey Quinn, Gavin Peacock, David Kelly, Kevin Sheedy, and Kevin Prock. Now, it's interesting that Kevin Keegan must have seen something in Steve Howie look like a centre-half rather than centre-forward, but never mind. He's in instead of Kilcline. It's a game we should win. Well, sadly, we don't. Kevin Brook on 30 minutes. John Aldridge to ex-Liverpool centre-forward, 33 minutes, 38 minutes. And then Johnny Morrissey, ex-Everton, 73 minutes. And it's 3-1. And just before the end, Kevin Brook scores a second with a free kick, and it's 3-2. And that's a disappointing defeat because it sits we're back down to 19th and sweaty palm territory with. So we're off to Ipswich and want to see if we can get something out of this one. Well, we're struggling, to put it mildly. Gavin Peacock on 17 minutes gives us hope, but then Simon Whitten, the dangerous centre-forward, scores the penalty. 42, Darren Peacock puts us 2-1 in the lead at half-time. But then straight after half-time, you could see Ipswich had just decided to go for it, and they did. And John Walk, big Scottish centre-forward, dangerous lad, 68 minutes. And Chris Kawamia, 72 minutes, and it's 3-2 to Ipswich. And that's how it stayed to the end. To me, what would that last 2 defeats are there for one reason only, and that's the fact that Kilcline isn't there. That steal is missing. 20,000 at the game, but Ipswich get it 3-2. So we're now still sitting 19th in the league and got a bit of a sweat on. Millwall at home. Well, Millwall home we should be winning. 23,000 at the game. Kevin sends out Tommy Wright, and then he introduces a new player, a player I like when he settled in. Bjorn Christensen goes in with Steve Howie and Brian Kilcline and Kevin Scott. More centre-halves than we know what to do with in that back line, but you can see what Kevin's trying to do. And up front, Leacock, Clark, Big Keacock, Kelly, Sheedy and Brock. Mickey Quinn comes as substitute because he's over his injury. And it looks like we might get something. 0-0 at half-time, but then disaster on 78 minutes when a bouncing ball comes off Tony Scott for Millwall and gives them a sneaky, fluky 1-0 win. And they have players in that we know, John Goodman, Phil Barber, Paul Stevenson, Malcolm Allen, who came to us for a while. But a sad 1-0 defeat at home, which 21st we are now, and that's really is disaster time. Derby County at home. We should be beating Derby. We're away to Derby. We should be getting something out of them because they're not playing very well either. But it doesn't happen like that, unfortunately. 4 minutes, Williams puts them in the lead. 19 minutes, Pope Sarr makes it 2. And then 49 minutes after half-time, Gavin Peacock gives away a chance. But then Craig Ramage on 77 minutes makes it 4-1 to Derby, and we're well out of it. 21,000 at the baseball ground. A team, he brought Alan Thompson back in at left back. Franz Carr comes in the forward line. But otherwise, as you were. But Derby just took us apart. It's the only way to describe that. And that firmly fixed we're on 22nd in the league, which is to say that's worrying is putting it mildly. Home to Portsmouth. We're now into win or relegate. That's where we are. And 25,000 still coming to the game, which is, when we're that far down in the second division with the possibility of third division, to get 25,000 speaks a lot about the loyalty of the fans. But I think it was loyalty to Keegan more than anything else. He changes things. Ray Ranson comes in, Alan Nielsen at fullback, Liam O'Brien goes into midfield, Kilcline and Scott are lined up together. Franz Carr comes on the right side. And Mickey Quinn substitute. Jim Smith still manager of Portsmouth, and you're going to get a tough game against one of Jim Smith's teams, and he fields a team which has got some tidy players in, like Darren Anderton, who was a really dangerous winger, Darren Aspinall, a dangerous centre forward. Not the best game, because we're making sure we don't lose it. And we hang on. And then right at the death, 86 minutes, David Kelly probably scores one of the most important goals he'll ever score for Newcastle United. Gives us a 1-0 victory right at the death, and shifts us up. And I think that's it. That's the goal, I think. And 26,000 at the game. We're 20th, and that's people heave and sighs of relief like Billy O. And we get that out of the way, and we have a testimonial. Ando's All-Stars, a 3-2 victory for the team, 14,000 at the crowd, which is not bad for Anderson. I mean, John Anderson is still a popular person in terms of Newcastle football, I think. So I was delighted that he would to get that recognition. And so we go to Leicester for the last game of the season. Heavy defeat, or any defeat, would be worrying. Anything better than a draw, and certainly a victory, and we're safe. And we go to Leicester, and Gavin Peacock on 45 minutes makes it 1-0. Typical Newcastle, 89 minutes, Steve Walsh, their dangerous forward. Centre back from a corner, equalises. And then again, typical Newcastle. We get a corner, everybody goes forward, and I think that's the goal there that we're looking at now. And Walsh, who just scored for them, gets all mixed up in his own goal, and does exactly that, puts it in his own net, and so we get a 2-1 victory, which fixes us at 20th, and I think that's the master declaring that we're safe. But gosh, biting my fingernails at that one. That really was not the best of seasons. We shipped goals, 80 odd goals, 84 I think it was, to be precise. far worse than anybody else. Nobody even come near us. Middlesbrough got promoted as everybody thought they would. And where is it there? We 84 goals against, and there's no other team comes anywhere near in terms of goals against. Brighton, who were relegated, got 77, but 84 was just a disaster. So the things for me this season was the changes in the boardroom were important, but more importantly, the signing of Keegan was a masterstroke because it cheered the crowd up, and the signing of certain players like Tyne just put that little bit of steel in the team that was missing, and we cheered because third division staring us in the face. It would have been a horror story if it had happened, but so that's not the best season, but it still has its excitement, even if it's on the wrong end of things. And you could see what happened to poor Ozzy. The young guys they were playing beautiful football, but their defensive nous was just non-existent. And you could see that Kevin could see that by the people he brought in. So there we are.
Great review, as always. Very thorough, George. Thank you very much for doing it. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Those Were the Days. Take care, George.
See you, Steve.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find out more about them from their website, mrbiggies.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to United Group Travel, UK coach holiday firm based in Morpeth. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. They're now taking bookings for 2024. You can call 01670 632 460, 0791 666 4174, or 07957 141 654, or go to the website unitedgrouptravel.com. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it. It does us a big favour. Click share to share to your other social media and let people know about NUFC matters. We're also a podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to help the show financially, you can take out a £25 one-off membership. You get a scarf, a pen, a cup, and a membership card. How do you get it? Go to nufcmatters.com, look for membership. If you've got a smartphone, then put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight to that section on the website. We also support the food bank on this channel. You can donate to the food bank today by going to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. We do support events on this channel as well. If you've got an event, please send it in and we'll promote it. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are doing a Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle event, the Class of 84, 25th of January 2024. Book now by calling 0844 249 1000. And the Tyneside Irish Centre, they're doing an event with Frank Clark and John Gibson on Thursday, December the 7th. You can get tickets from nufcmatters.com and they are priced at £15. There's also some tickets available on Groupon. Don't forget, you can catch me 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, with Rye, Dave, and Daz on the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show, 7 till 9. And you can catch us on the Red, the Toon, and the Cat, and on Toon Radio's website. WhatsApp us on the day 0330 043 2002, the perfect way to start your day. We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.